Well, I think that, a lot of people come to a place like Van Cortlandt House and they're expecting to hear about the Van Cortlandt family and they're expecting to hear maybe about George Washington or like the Dutch history of New York. But when you dig a little deeper, you realize that every aspect of this site, from what Ashley's going to talk about outside in the park to the actual interior of the house itself, every aspect of it was touched by enslaved African laborers who, without them, none of this really would have been possible.
This tour today is a part of a greater project that's called Reimagining the Enslaved African Burial Ground in Van Cortlandt Park. That's actually going to be our last stop today. And that's part of an even greater initiative called the Enslaved People Project, which essentially was created as an initiative with a goal to bring to the forefront the history of enslaved people that once inhabited Van Cortlandt Plantation, which then became Van Cortlandt Park. Is Hester and Piero's Mill Pond, previously called Van Cortlandt Lake. But on Juneteenth of 2021, the Enslaved People Project um, had a success with its first initiative, which was the addition of some signage, which is really like, community members were so pleased about this. They also have no idea how much work it takes to work with parks to get one sign up. Honestly, it's a quite a feat. But the reason why, in particular, they wanted to name this body of water after Hester and Piero in particular, is because this is the body of water that he was working with to power those mills and to power those millstones that were going together. This body of water was dammed with enslaved African labor. There's also another figure, Andrew Saxton. When you get to the end of the house tour, you'll actually get to see a replica of some of his clothing. The reason why they made that replica is based off of an advertisement. He actually escaped from Van Cortlandt Plantation, and the Van Cortlandts were so desperate to get him back that they put out this full-fledged advertisement offering money to bring him back. They were like, if you find him this distance, we'll give you this much. If you find him further, we'll give you this much. Here's exactly what he was wearing. Here's some tools he might have with him. Here's how he walks. Here's the color of his skin. Here, like, they got so in detail. So they're like, there's this replica. Um, and he was actually a cooper, like he made barrels. And were super important during this time period. And this site, the Enslaved African Burial Ground, which is here, blocked off on this side, the way we were able to find out that this was an enslaved African burial ground is through ground penetrating radar. There was murmurings over the course of years and years and years that this site was an enslaved African burial site, and the community was really concerned. It got to a point where when this wasn't blocked off, people were just kind of walking through it. The reason why the community is so activated by this history is because there really is a collective loss when we don't speak about the history of the enslaved people. When we give a tour of it, and this is something we're reckoning with in so many parts of the country, but when you give a tour and you are ignoring this part of the history, that this home or none of this would be here unless it was due to the labor of enslaved people, there's something um, that is really unsettling to us in the present, especially if you're from that particular community. Like if you're from like an African diasporic community, it's really unsettling to feel like it's just being completely ignored or erased. Essentially, the goal of it is to bring to the forefront the history of enslaved people that once inhabited Van Cortlandt Plantation and the enslaved Africans that are buried in this particular site.